Hello and welcome to Guy Cocker's Video Games Podcast, episode 24 on the 1st of November 2013. I'm your host, Guy Cocker, and on this week's show, it's a Johnny Two Shoes / Glitches special, as I'm joined by two of the UK mobile gaming scene's most exciting new talents to talk about the week's news, address your feedback, and talk about what we've been playing. My first guest is Max Scott Slade. Max is one-third of indie developer Johnny Two Shoes, developer of High Speed Chase, Plunderland, The Heist, and the brand new game Chippy, which just launched on iOS yesterday. Max, thanks very much for joining me. Just tell us a little bit about the studio.
Hey, so I run Johnny Two Shoes and Glitches. Glitches is a spin-off kind of company of Johnny Two Shoes that we set up recently to focus on kind of like smaller, minimal viable product games. So we can kind of like have a more defined release schedule rather than kind of spending infinite amount of time on polishing up tiny little bits of animal artificial intelligence, which is what Johnny Two Shoes kind of specialises in.
Your previous games took a few years, didn't they? It's fair to say.
Yeah, well, we kind of we've been working a long time on a game called Prevail, which is it's been kind of like in and out of active development based on how much money we've got in the bank, and we kind of thought, we need to release something. So Chippy's 12-week development cycle, and it's just come out for iOS. Under the Glitches moniker. So Johnny Two Shoes started in 2007 when we released High Speed Chase, and on a single banner advert we made more money in one day than our wages combined for the month, so we went and quit our jobs. Johnny Two Shoes was born.
Right, so that was it? It was just after that first day?
And now Glitches started about 2 weeks ago. So it's all very fresh.
It's all very fast moving. All right, thanks very much, Max. Next up, my fellow guest is Max's fellow designer and brother, Hugo Scott Slade. Hugo's also worked on those games, and he's made a game called Gummulon, which is for a chewing game company that tracks your chews. Tell us a bit more about this, Hugo.
It was it was a mobile game, iOS, and the hook of it, like the gimmick, was, in addition to playing with touch, you could also play with chewing, and essentially it worked. You held your iPhone or iPad in front of your face, and you chewed with your mouth, and it would detect it and use that as the input for the game.
Right.
It was for a chewing gum company, so it kind of fit that it was chewing. It was fun to work on, but I spent 3 months making the chewing tracking, which is a very specialist thing to have made.
You can't really transfer that into a lot of other games.
Not really.
And tell us about Chippy. Just give us a bit more information on it. Obviously, it's it sounds obvious. It's to do with chips and fish and chips.
Hugo's idea originally.
So. Okay.
Yeah. I thought it would be really funny to make a game about fish and chips, like a fish and chip shop simulator, which is what Chippy is. It does sound a bit weird, but it is fun. But we saw a video, a burnt face man, and there's this small clip in one of the episodes where it's an advert for a washing machine emulator, and I thought that was hilarious. I wanted to make a game. I didn't want to make a game about washing machines,
right?
But I thought a fish and chip shop game would be fun. So.
And that was it. You weren't literally in a fish and chip shop and being like watching them package the fish and chips.
No.
I only had fish and chips yesterday. Haven't had it through the entire development. So
Hugo's really strict on himself about stuff like that.
Yeah, I like to celebrate. Go out, have fish and chips when it's done.
Right.
When it's done, it's out. So
that was your reward, literally yesterday.
Yeah, it was really good.
It was the poshest fish and chips ever.
Was it?
So swanky.
We should mention we're in Shoreditch. We're in your offices, and so I imagine there's some good fish and chip places.
Yeah, we actually went to Islington, and there's a place called the Fish and Chip Shop.
Yeah.
Which is literally what it is.
Yeah.
But actually, if you're expecting kind of quick service and a bit of a greasy bit of a greasy fish, it's not like that at all. It's like battered in Camden Hell's lager and all this stuff. It's amazing. Yeah.
I think it was set up by two of the chefs that used to work at the Ivy.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
And
Swanky.
It was very good.
So, I mean, obviously the game you're in a fish and chip shop. Just to describe a little bit about it. I mean, how would you guys describe it? How the game mechanics work?
Well, people have said it's a time management game where it's just you manage what you're doing. Each step is relatively simple: getting food out the fridge or freezer, frying it, wrapping it up, giving it to people. Each step's quite easy, but the fun comes in trying to manage everything at once. All the steps and just keeping track of things.
Different really orders coming in, and like you've got to fry different items at different times.
It's not really like normal time management games in that you're usually kind of like pressing buttons, setting prices. It's not like that. It's more like
very physical.
Have you ever played like Tokaboka games where you've got this really kind of like fun little world, and it's mostly leaning towards your imagination, right? So you can muck around with stuff, but it's for young kids. We basically wanted to take something that was really beautiful about that game mechanic and kind of like have a game around it, so have some meta game to it. So Chippy is very hands-on, like you'll drag the chips from the freezer to the fryer and you drop them in, and makes that really satisfying kind of sizzle noise, and you see them cook like a progress bar, but it looks kind of weird, and then if you leave them in there they burn like a progress bar and your shop fills with smoke. But yeah, it's like the whole thing of kind of dragging those chips in with the fish into the newspaper and wrapping them up. It feels like you're wrapping up a little present. It feels really great. And every time you do it, you can kind of get better and better and better at it, and faster and faster and faster. It's kind of like skill-based in that sense. But when it gets manic, it's so manic. Like you're burning food, you're pissing off all the customers. Like they're getting really angry with you. Like their heads literally turn red and they're shaking like mad, and they storm out.
You'll have to excuse me, guys. This is a sort of lazy journalistic trope, but like I would compare it to something like Cooking Mama, where you have to manage this. It's food based as well. But that act of folding the paper and then, like when I was playing it, throwing the package of fish and chips at the customers was actually really satisfying. Just folding the paper over is something.
I think it's got physics in it, and it's quite slapstick in the way that you can throw things around, and like the customers just watch what you're doing, and you have your touches on the screen create big like arms that come up from the edges or the bottom of the screen, and so it's like you're a puppeteer controlling the chip shop owner.
Yeah. But one thing no one, like, you probably won't notice it immediately, maybe this is a little bit of a spoiler, but in the game, the first touch is your right hand as the male chip shop owner. The second touch is your left hand. Right. The third touch is your wife's right hand. Right. And the fourth touch is your wife's left hand. So it's like a teamwork game, which you really kind of see on the iPad when you can play it with a couple of people.
I've been playing it on iPhone. I hadn't noticed that.
Yeah,
it was 4 different hands coming in. All right. Well, before we talk to you guys about mobile development and more about Chippy, if you have any thoughts, you guys listening, if you have any thoughts, let me know what you think about the show. Please email podcast@guycocker.com and let me know what you think. And please, if you listen to the show, leave a rating or review on iTunes. It really helps other people find the show. And thanks for bearing with me this week. I know it's a slightly later than usual podcast, but it's been a busy week, which we'll talk about later. Okay, guys. So tell us, Chippy's on iOS at this point in time, iPad, iPhone compatible. How much is it? And it's just been released literally yesterday, right?
Yeah, so launched yesterday worldwide. Very lucky to get featured in the US and UK app stores as one of the best games of the week, which is we're really chuffed with. It's £2, $3 if you're in the US. The reason it's priced like that is because it's a relatively niche game. If you tell someone a fish and chip shop simulator, they're like, okay. Some people get it, some people won't, but ultimately it's kind of priced appropriately for a smaller audience, I guess.
Right. And so it's just, I know a lot of people probably always want to talk to you guys as mobile developers about pricing and stuff. Obviously, great that it's been featured on the App Store. I know that's a big help, even for even big developers. What's the atmosphere like at the moment? Because when I came in, you guys, you're racing up the charts. You've just launched it. What's it like? Are you guys always looking to see how you're progressing and how many it's selling? And
well, there was when we launched Plunderland, we kind of lost our minds a bit because we didn't expect to have the amount of success we did in such a short amount of time. So with Plunderland, we got the app of the week feature. We got into the top 10 US charts, top 2 grossing because we're 3 times the price of every other app.
Yeah.
And we had all this marketing strategy around it, which we didn't do because we got all the success straight away. It blew our heads. And one of the biggest problems with that is you're looking at the numbers like you're looking at a flight board out of an airport you really want to leave. It's like you're addicted to it and you really can't look away. And this time actually we didn't look at our chart position until today, because we to kind of like be addicted to the numbers, and you've got emails coming in from press, you need to respond to that,
right?
Yeah.
So you didn't even have a sneak peek? I know you went out for dinner last night.
We didn't.
No.
We actually didn't even bring a laptop out with us, so we couldn't even check that we got featured.
So you're out for dinner and you've just got picked up. You can't even see that you're featured in the store.
No.
So you found out this morning when you got into work.
Well, we kind of realised that we couldn't do it, so we kind of were texting a few people who could have desktop access. But it's Halloween, so everyone's in the pub just drinking themselves silly. But yeah, that's cool.
So how's it for you, Hugo?
It's very exciting. I'm trying to keep calm and level-headed about it, because if I let the excitement get in, which it has, I get worked up. I get really excited. I annoy myself because I'm just like, I'll just check the charts. I'll just check everything. I've got things to do.
You got fixes to do.
I've got a few fixes.
We had one yesterday where if you went to the next game on an iPad, in certain situations the whole screen would just go black. We're like, oh shit, we need to fix this immediately.
Yeah, that's no good.
That's submitted to Apple, expedited review, approved. So hopefully it should be, that was yesterday, out today or tomorrow.
Right, okay. And so do you get lots of feedback immediately from people like that when they're playing through the game? Yeah. Do you just check the store and see what they're saying, or do they email you directly?
A lot of emails and tweets.
The emails have been, some of them have been absolutely silly, but you get that. When Plunderland came out, I think people who had iPhones were, there was a lot less people who had iPhones.
Yeah.
But now it's kind of saturated to the point where everyone has an iPhone or a smartphone. So the people who are interacting with you on emails are sometimes trying to con you out of a promo code and stuff like this.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of trying to work out who's being genuine, who isn't.
Right.
It's kind of hard when you're actually trying to do bug fixes and talk to the press and make sure you're getting the right exposure.
So possibly a busy weekend for you guys.
This weekend. Very much so.
So what you were saying, Max? I think when we came in, the iTunes charts are only updated on a 24-hour basis. So you kind of don't know where you are in real time.
Yeah, you used to be able to scrape the store with this app that the guy from Magic Jungle Software who made Chopper and Chopper 2.
Right.
But Apple now kind of blocked that because it must have been caning their servers. So you can't use that anymore. You've got to rely on things like App Annie and App Figures, which are websites that kind of make reports about where you are in the charts.
Right.
They do some scraping, but they're very kind of cautious about it because they don't want to get blocked.
Yeah, of course.
You really don't know until the next day. You don't know how much money you're making. You don't know where you are really. But that's kind of fun, I think. Not knowing is quite exciting.
Is it? This is your first game in collaboration with this new company.
Yeah.
Is it? What's it like out there at the moment for games of your size? I know you launched at £1.99. I've heard people that say that that's a key price because you kind of cut out all of the, I don't want to say like the bad consumers, but you get a sort of different level of consumer. I know it's £1.99, which is still a tiny amount of money, but you get a lot, you get better quality, almost like the Ocado or the Waitrose shoppers in the game world coming through your doors. Is that right?
I think so. Definitely when you really, the only kind of information I have on this is really Plunderland.
Right.
Gumbulon was a free app, so that was kind of handled outside of our company. It was released under Mondelez, big kind of corporation. Plunderland, we did a couple of times where we made that free. After about 2 years of it being out, we made it free, and we got about 150,000 downloads in 2 days, which is amazing. The kind of feedback you get. Everyone always wants more content. It doesn't matter if you are producing it at an incredibly alarming rate. There's always someone who's beaten the latest thing that you've made within 20 minutes of you releasing the game, and there's nothing you can do about it. Those kind of comments I don't mind, but it's the kind of comments that is where people are there's one bug they've found and they're just giving you 1 out of 5 on the App Store. It's this kind of their voice can't be heard in any possible way apart from giving you the most negative appraisal of the app.
Right.
And they can sometimes be like, love the game, but this is wrong with it, 1 out of 5. It's like, guys, come on, give us a break. You just drop us an email or a tweet and we'll respond to you and talk to you properly.
And does the price stop that then a little bit, the $1.99?
I think so, but we have had some reviews already, 1 star on Chippy because of the iPad bug.
Right.
And we're doing our best to respond to these bug fixes as quick as possible, but there's only so much you can do with the review process.
Sure.
You can't just make it live.
Right, you have to go through.
And you got to test.
What's so I'm sure you would have a lot of people saying to you though, make it free to play and go down that route. Is that still the prevailing?
That is
sense?
The idea is overwhelmingly free to play is the only option,
right?
Which does my head in, because I think when you make something free to play, you've got to really have a big marketing budget to start with.
Okay.
And you've got to have an aim of having multi-millions of people using your app, because it's about between 0.5% and 4% if you're incredibly lucky of people buying in-app purchases like virtual currency and things like that. A lot of people will just grind through it or put up with the ads or whatever. So yeah, you have to have a really high proportion of content. So every app we sell is the equivalent of having, probably 150 users, something like that, which is crazy, really.
Yeah.
I don't know how many people have downloaded the app so far, but we'll find out.
Yeah, sure. So, but it's not something that you're looking at doing, going down that free-to-play route. Okay.
I think we're kind of like trying to prove in a way that premium apps, I know premium is a funny word to use when something's £2, but that it's still a viable option for developers.
Right.
I don't want more people to get burnt by releasing an app for free and then having no way to cover the costs of development.
Sure.
So yeah, I think it's important for indie developers to kind of consider that.
It helps if your games are beautifully. I mean, your games are beautifully designed and made. There's a lovely visual element to them, and it helps that feels. You get that premium feel from
Thanks.
it. I think it's less of a question and more of a statement. I mean, do you want to comment on that at all? I mean, it must be something designed that's really appealing to you.
Well, I guess we've been lucky in that we've made a lot of games in the past. This isn't like our first app. This isn't even our first. Kind of game on the iPhone. We've made probably over 50 games in the past, mostly Flash, and we work with big people like Coca-Cola, Warner Brothers, all these people who have incredibly high standards. You can't just kind of trot something out and be like, that's it, can I get paid please? And likelihood is you're going to be in a process that takes 3-4 months of just checking whether it looks good enough.
Right.
And you learn a lot of stuff in those times. But yeah, I think presentation is everything, really. I mean, especially if you're charging £2, you're setting the precedent in someone's head that this is a better quality app. And if they can verify that with visuals, then the likelihood is they might buy it.
Right.
If it looks shit and it's £2, you just think it's a bit of a con job, like smash and grab kind of app development.
What about on the contract on the work for hire stuff you've done, Hugo, working for chewing gum manufacturers? Is that a viable option for game makers these days?
I'd say it comes down to the project and the budget, because there's a lot of money out there at the low tiers. Everyone wants something, but they don't want to pay a lot for it.
Right.
It's hard to have something that you believe in and be able to sell it.
Right.
So if you have an idea and you're trying to get some money for it, trying to get out on some platforms or get some investors or something, it's easy to get the low tier. Well, I say easy. It's easier to get the lower tier, and then a lot of investors or companies, when they award you the lower tier, it's like, we'll give you this much money. And if you go back and be like, this isn't enough money to cover the cost of development, they will say, well, our next pricing tier is this one, and you're obviously not this at this point.
Because it comes would it come under a marketing budget, I guess, or
it depends.
It depends on the company.
Sure.
I mean, what Hugo's specifically talking about is kind of like working with platforms and getting money from platforms to do kind of like new games. Mm-hmm. It's obviously really weird if you're an iOS developer and you haven't got apps on other devices. That's kind of relatively standard now.
Yeah.
I think, even if there's a kind of a few months lead, and we haven't made an Android version of Chippy. There isn't an Android version of Plunderland. We're trying to break down those barriers from our development point of view, because I don't think a lot of people realise that to take advantage of a device to its fullest potential, you almost have to code natively.
Right.
Like to use one of these kind of like cross-platform toolkits is brilliant, but it does increase the workload. There's no denying the fact that that's true.
So using something like Unity, which everyone talks about as being easy to port your game across various different platforms.
I mean, Unity is a kind of a niche example, but at the moment there isn't enough 2D support for us, even though they've announced it, and that's brilliant, and we're really excited to use it. It's not there yet.
Right.
And it's really hard to sell something which to a client you have never ever used before.
Right.
And you've never kind of like actually developed a game that's come out.
Sure.
You know?
Sure. So what's exciting when you're right in the heart of Shoreditch? Loads of game developers down this way, and on both, I guess, traditional and mobile. What's exciting? What's happening in this space at the moment that gets you guys excited and that other people should be looking at?
Well, there's a really cool little group that meets up every month. The first Monday of every month at a pub in Islington. I can't remember the name of the pub. I know exactly where it is. It doesn't help people who are listening. It's called something like the King's Head or something.
I have this in my calendar. Can I publicise it? Because I was going to come along.
Yeah, definitely publicise it. It's really worth it.
It's the Crown.
The Crown
in Islington.
That's what's on the King's Head.
That's what I have in my calendar anyway. I was going to come to it last month. I couldn't make it, and then this month it's the Call of Duty launch, which kind of sucks. But yes, if you're an indie developer, then it's worth going along to.
Yeah, and not even just a developer. Like loads of sound designers go, journalists go. It's kind of a nice place if you are either new to the industry or the area to go and just kind of chat with people who are making games.
Yeah.
It's very unpretentious. It's very kind of like everyone shows their demos off and we kind of take over the whole pub, really.
Nice. So that's worth checking out.
Yeah, definitely.
Are there any games that have been released? Yeah, I know you're, like you said, iOS developers. Any games that are out there at the moment that have caught your eye?
I'm actually playing Fist of Awesome at the moment.
Yeah, okay.
You know, that's a fun game. You fight bears.
I met the developer the other night, actually.
Yeah, how was it like?
He was good. He was really good. Yeah, I've written about his game quite a bit for. Been doing features on the new set of Android consoles for the likes of Stuff and Wired. So his game is on GameStick and Ouya and iOS and
awesome,
just vanilla Android as well. So yeah, it's very good.
That's a good.
It's very funny. Yes, it really is. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So you've been playing that. That is good. I'd agree with that. Like an old school beat 'em up, side-scrolling beat 'em up.
Aside from that, you know, I think this is probably every person in the country who's got a console and is waiting for other games to come out. But obviously, Grand Theft Auto has been absorbing me massively. And me and Hugo's been watching these videos called GTA 5 Mythbusters.
They're brilliant, yeah.
I love that.
So good, yeah.
I love watching them.
I think I've mentioned them on the show, but basically people ask questions like, will a car still explode if you empty all the fuel out of it? And the answer is no. And it's just the amount of detail in that game is
so much detail just blows my mind.
So 1,000, it's quite the opposite of what you guys are doing, like 1,000 people making that game across the world.
Yeah, but it's always been a massive inspiration.
Yeah.
You know, if you look at our games like High Speed Chase on johnny2shoes.com and the Heist series, those games are essentially mini games that we love to do, multiplayer in GTA 2.
Right.
Just like little games we made up between ourselves over the network that we just turned into actual games.
Right, okay.
You know?
So actually we're going to come on to a competition in a sec, but there's bits of GTA and Chippy as well, isn't there? Can you say that?
Yeah.
Kind of.
Yeah, I don't know.
Homages to it, at least.
Homage.
Definitely.
We'll talk about it in a second. What do you think about journalists covering the mobile space? Because it's something that in the past, when I've been working I cover these sorts of games for the mainstream guys like BBC and stuff. But when I've been working in specialist press, so sites like GameSpot, I've always struggled to get like mobile games covered in a way that people want to read about. You know, they're always. It was just a big frustration for me was like making video content around mobile games because predominantly a lot of them are either cheap or free, and so the need to read about them, I guess, is lessened. But I don't know if you'd agree with that or not.
Well, I mean, from our perspective, it's really hard, I think, for us to get in contact with journalists because they seem incredibly overwhelmed,
right? Just
generally, and for someone to take a game seriously that is a low price point, even £2, there's not a lot in it,
Right.
If you're kind of like looking around for content, I think there isn't any real long form journalism around apps, which I understand because there's no money in it really, I guess.
Sure.
But yeah, I can imagine from the perspective of a journalist, it's a tough thing because there's so much content and you have to sift through so much stuff, like literally every day, probably like hundreds of new games out, and that's I just don't know what it's like, but. Every now and again, you meet them at indie game thing, or events like BAFTA where I've met you a few times, and through other friends who know you and things like that. So that's the way. You got to have kind of like personal kind of contact with people.
I think I asked the question because I know you guys are pretty good at it, but I think a lot of indie developers are quite not scared or cautious, but just don't know how to go about contacting journalists and getting their game out there.
Well, they're people, aren't they?
They're people. They're people behind the email and Twitter handles and stuff.
People who are massively overwhelmed. That's what I kind of treat them as.
I always think if there's a website like Pocket Gamer that you could read, it always feels like, oh, I could never have my game, my whatever on here, because I read this is something that I do like by myself. If I ever got my game on this website, I'd be just like so happy,
right?
And it's like it's kind of overwhelming,
just getting over that hurdle of their people, like Max says.
I mean, even like Plunderland, we didn't get massive gaming press really. I mean, we got a couple of things like we did so well, like IGN gave us something like 89 or something like that out of 100, or that was like mind-blowing,
right?
You know, having IGN give you a better, and at the time Mafia 2 just came out,
right?
We're like, we got a better score than Mafia 2,
right,
and even like Metacritic of 85 for Plunderland. That's nuts. All those things that kind of feed in, it makes you feel like it's not real.
So then you have to plaster that on the iTunes store, better than Mafia 2. IGN.com.
I wouldn't say that it is. I love Mafia 2 as a game. I think it's brilliant.
Okay, well, so Chippy's out there. It's obviously on the iTunes store, the App Store. It's featured at the moment, so pretty easy to find. What's next for you guys after Chippy? Can you talk about it yet?
Yeah, we can talk about it. Hugo, you might want to chat about it.
Well, we're working on something in Unity. It's in 3D, but it's 2D. They're affectionately called 2.5D.
Right, okay. And this is Unity that we talked about earlier, so game development.
It's early days, prototypes, a lot of prototypes, testing, but it's looking promising.
Good stuff.
We can make this.
And another one to be built in 6 weeks, do you think? Or?
Well, we have... Well, with Chippy, a lot of it we made up as we were going along. Like, I've got a brilliant idea for a feature. Should we include it? And it was really hard because a lot of ideas came up and you wanted them to be in the game. Like, this would be really fun, but it makes the project take longer.
We were very kind of, I guess, cutthroat about what we put in the game.
Yeah.
But like, I think what you guys are trying to say is that Meteor was really planned out.
Right.
Yeah. And we took it to people to try and get this game like partly funded, because you know how long it takes for apps to kind of like get your money through. It's a couple of months.
Right.
So at this point in time, Meteor, and that's the code name of the game.
Right.
Is in early prototyping stages. But because the game is so planned out, it actually has a very short development cycle.
Right, okay.
And we're kind of leaning on the fact that 3D allows you to do really beautiful things with very simple shapes.
Right, okay.
So we can kind of like make very kind of like beautiful, simple 3D models that are lit dynamically in the game. So using low poly, which is low file size, low computational requirements, perfect for mobile. But then you're using lighting to kind of create the atmosphere almost entirely.
Right, okay.
So it's kind of an experiment for us in a whole different way than Chippy. But we are probably going to, if Chippy does well, we will be, thinking about more kind of odd simulation games to introduce our mad hands and weird customers into.
More, you've got to, well, you don't have to, but I did a talk about mobile successes, and obviously a lot of revenue for Rovio comes from merchandise and all that sort of stuff. So Chippy branded hats and stuff. I don't know.
I want to do a Chippy branded apron.
Chippy branded apron
for the kitchen.
Do it. Get on it.
Let's keep it let's keep it cooking.
Indeed. All right, thanks guys. Where can we? Is there a website that people can go to check out Chippy?
Chippyapp.com.
Okay, last week I had 3 signed copies of Read Only Memory's new book, Sensible Software 1986 to 1999, to give away. All you had to do was tell me in which UK town Sensible Software was founded. I've drawn 3 winners who all knew that the answer was Chelmsford, and they are John Gibbons from Durham, Indy Gill from London, and David Chambers from Staffs. Congrats guys, your details are with the publisher. You should have your books very shortly. This week, thanks to Max and Hugo, we have 3 codes for Chippy to give away. All you have to do is submit a headline for the newspaper that features in the game, preferably involving some sort of fish-based pun, to the account @Morning Horn News. The best ones will win a code and be featured in the game. Is that about right, guys?
Yeah, that's right.
That's right.
Perfect. Okay, time for your feedback. Remember, you can get in touch with me on the show. It's podcast@guycocker.com. You can tweet me at guycocker, and I think that's about it. Okay, so emails. First is from Kings for Now. He says, hi Guy, another great podcast, really varied and interesting. One of your listener emails, from James I think, was about the difference between current consoles and the shiny new ones coming for Christmas, and it's got me thinking, and I reckon you have it right. Where games are being built to span the generational gap, they will mostly be forced to work within the limitations of the older system, and the next gen will simply add better visuals. I suspect that adding additional gameplay features would be too expensive in development unless they sell the versions as different games to tempt us into the double dip. With the likes of Watch Dogs and Drive Club being delayed, I have decided to delay my own purchase of the PS4 until, for me, there's a must-have game. Currently the launch lineup looks rather meagre, so I'll stick with my PlayStation 3 for a while. Or maybe I'll get a PS Vita in readiness for remote play when I eventually do get the PS4. As always, enjoy the show, thanks very much. And P.S. James should be careful and not assume that all games have a £10 upgrade option, and even those that do, I'm sure I read this that it's time limited to early 2014, March perhaps, and that's from Kings. What do you? I know you guys are in the mobile development space. Any interest in PS4 or Xbox One, or very close now, a couple of weeks away?
I mean, I personally, when the Xbox 360 came out, I bought one immediately.
Yeah.
Had a PS3 virtually on launch day as well.
That was expensive back in the day.
It was very expensive. I've got that fat console that's got the loudest fan in it.
Yeah, me too, yeah.
It's brilliant. Yeah, I think that the PS4 is one of those interesting ones. With games delayed, it is a bit of a shame, but there is so much kind of like cool stuff they've done on the new generation, like the fact that you can now play games while they're updating and all this kind of stuff, which, it should have been there in the PS3. It's really annoying on anything that stops you from playing the game.
Yeah.
As soon as you turn it on, you've got updates to do. That's really annoying, and that's what kind of like the iOS and other smartphone, they kind of work like that. You open the app and you're in there.
Yeah.
It's more instant, and I think that's going to kind of be the way things go.
That's the expectation these days, isn't
that's
it?
The
it's
expectation,
just ready to go.
You don't want something to come up and say, please wait, and then that goes away and it says, loading. Yeah. Feels like you're playing a Spectrum.
Yeah.
Might as well get the tape noise going.
Sony in particular seem to be really active. I've had a couple of indie developers on the show that are being courted by Sony. Have they come to you and said, make us a cool indie game for PS4?
Oh, we'd love to work with, we'd love to work with Sony. I think that Shahid at Sony is very busy.
Yeah.
I've emailed him a few times. We've had a few conversations.
This is Shahid Ahmed, who looks after Indian relations.
Yeah, exactly. A friend of ours, Ricky at Honey Slug, is making Ho Hokum.
Right. Okay.
And that looks really great. He's.
I don't know if that's it's not launch, is it?
I think
is it launch?
It's,
okay.
launch. It's one of the launch indie games for PS4.
Right.
So that's cool. I mean, my criticism of any kind of new console is literally the same as what James is saying there. It's the content that comes out isn't kind of like really great until about 2-3 years down the line, but that's always the case. Early adopters suffer in the fact that they pay the highest price point for the console.
Yeah.
But you know what, having that new console is always really cool, and there is loads more digital download stuff that Sony's doing and Xbox guys are doing, so there's still going to be things to play, but it's not going to be your obvious big box titles that you get like normal.
Yeah. What about you, Hugo? Are you excited about Xbox One and PS4?
I've got a 360 at the moment. I think if and when I get the next generation console, I will get PS4.
Okay.
Mainly because the exclusive titles, which to me is the main reason there's still two consoles, is just the exclusive titles.
Yeah.
For me, looking back on it, the PS3 had the better ones. Just that's my opinion.
Sure.
My taste. Like The Last of Us. Been recently playing a lot of the Metal Gear Solid games again.
Yeah.
So I'd definitely like to get a PS4 and play the one which is basically Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah, I think because
those two games are great.
That's a funny one with Metal Gear. I think that was one of the few remaining exclusives of PS. Although certain Metal Gear games have made it to Xbox platforms, the new one is coming to Xbox One as well. It was shown at the Xbox. It was at the press conference.
I'm a bit out of data.
Yeah, but it's all very 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 confusing. All right, let's move on to another question. This one's quite a technical one from David Blackby. He says, I was wondering if you had any thoughts or comments on limitation of playing games on Xbox One if Kinect camera is not connected. My issue is not so much a fear of the NSA wiretaps, it's more of a technical limitation. All my AV equipment resides over 20 metres from the TV screen under the stairs in the house, and I use my AV receiver to provide video and audio switching to a screen and speakers hanging on a wall in the lounge. So whilst I could connect to the console, that's the Kinect camera, it would be unable to see or hear me. Not that I bothered, but on the Xbox 360 it was possible to run Kinect using USB 2 to Cat6 adapters at great expense, I might add, along with the Kinect locally powered via a mains adapter supplied to enable use on the original design's Xbox. Hopefully you're with me on this. However, as the Xbox One is using a USB 3 bus, such a solution no longer exists without considering how much you would provide power to the unit. I'm aware that Microsoft has stated that it no longer needs to be connected to the machine to function, but just wondering how much of a compromise it will make with the current set of games scheduled to be released. Will it turn out to be a critical component of games as developers assume that everyone will have one? Great podcast, especially like the guests you've got. And that's from David. I'll jump in and try and answer this one. So the Kinect camera, as you say, David, is not going to be required. There's lots of security and privacy concerns around Kinect camera. I think that probably forced them to drop the need to have it. But if you talk to a lot of developers who are working on Xbox One, they do say that Kinect is going to be a big part of Xbox One games. Well, a lot of Xbox One games that are coming out, and that's because they do assume that everyone does have a Kinect because it's shipping with one. I don't know how you guys how do you feel about motion controls in general?
I think if people get it right, then it's brilliant. But like you're saying, he's kind of set up his under the stairs away from his TV screen. So, which a lot of people who are into their home cinema do. They just want a clean screen and they put all the. I appreciate that level of OCD. I would absolutely do the same thing.
Yeah.
All my stuff is in like a metal container on wheels that I can wheel around with a projector on top.
Nice.
I've got a similar thing. With the projector, obviously, you've got it where the kind of console is and it's away from the front, so you need a similar thing. It's the same problem.
Yeah.
I guess the common setup for most people is they've got a TV and they shove everything underneath it.
Yeah.
And Microsoft is probably making something for most people. This is kind of a niche situation.
It's a good point. You touched upon it with the iPhone. You're developing for one platform and you're developing for iPhone, and it's obviously there are older versions of it, but it's not really a moving target in the same way Android is. No. What developers have said to me is it's great that Xbox, while it's more expensive, is including that camera in there because again they know what they're designing for. It's not a peripheral that only 10% of owners have. It's something that they know everyone has, and so they can in theory use it. I mean, there might be some people here who can't use it for whatever AV setup reasons, but as a developer it makes it better knowing you've got that. It means
that you could use that at any point, right?
Yeah.
Market saturation is the most important thing, especially for some nutty peripheral like a Kinect, which is getting people in their masses standing up and playing games in front of their TV.
From having played the latest version of Kinect, I quite fond of the original Kinect because I used it to lose some weight a couple of years ago, but the new Kinect is really it's a lot better, so I'm sort of excited to see where it goes. Okay, next email from Graham Mackay says, wondering what you made of the resolution rumours regarding Xbox One. Apparently games will be running at a lower resolution than on PlayStation 4. Do you think this will devalue the user experience of the console and hand the advantage to Sony, or do you think only a tiny percentage of people will even care? Would you agree that, in my opinion, the Wii U is going to be where it's at regarding the next gen for the foreseeable future? It already has a handful of excellent games and a few existing titles, exciting titles even, coming out in the near future. Couple that with the fact that the other two have a fairly underwhelming launch window. In Nintendo-related news, I just had the traumatic experience of deleting my ex-girlfriend from an Animal Crossing game. Firstly, the mayor's assistant asked me if I was sure I wanted to demolish the house and delete all the records, which were memories in my mind that my ex had made. She then said goodbye to my ex, and there is now a big house-shaped wasteland in my town. Damn you, Nintendo. Take it easy, and that's from Graham. Excuse me. So this is the big news story. We're going to talk about it later in the show. Again, this is pretty technical, guys, but the big news story that came out this week is that both Battlefield 4, which is out today at the time of recording, and Call of Duty, which is out next week, are essentially better, higher resolution, so better looking, broadly speaking, on PlayStation 4 than they are on Xbox One. Battlefield 4 runs at, I think, 720. They both run at 720p on native resolution on Xbox, and on PlayStation, get this right, Call of Duty runs at 1080p, and I think Battlefield runs at like 960p, something like that. Something around that.
Hybrid.
Yeah.
Do you guys care about resolution and just general graphics? Let me just answer this quick question. Do I think people care? I think the people that buy the console at launch are probably the sort of people that really care because they're really wanting that next gen experience now. But longer term, I don't think it's going to be so much of an issue. But what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think you hit the nail on the head there. Most people won't really mind, but like you said, people who have got these wicked AV setups and really want to push their hardware to the limit.
The guys that are buying it on day one,
yeah, exactly. Whether that affects kind of like launch numbers, I don't know. I think probably most people are going to be buying current gen anyway.
Right.
Like it's going to be Xbox 360
Christmas,
and
sure.
PS3.
PS4 is pulling ahead at retail. It's definitely doing more pre-orders than
really?
Xbox, but Xbox I think will claw it back.
Cheaper, isn't it?
It is, yeah. It's £80 cheaper, which is significantly cheaper.
I think the resolution difference for games like Battlefield and Call of Duty, where if you're running around and you need to see someone, an enemy, if you've got a higher resolution, then surely you can see more of them.
In theory, yeah.
In theory. So
again, it comes down to whether you'd actually really notice it unless you were very close to the screen. But yeah, in theory,
I'm sure there's a select few people who will say that is their edge.
Yeah, the pro gamers definitely.
Pro gamers.
Yeah.
What about I don't know if this is possible, but one of the things that I really notice when people talk about consoles is are their friends on it?
Yeah.
And a lot of people
The
wait to
social
see
element,
if
yeah.
their friends are going to get the Xbox One or the PS4 before they make their decision.
Yeah.
If, say, someone goes, oh, I'm going to get the Xbox One because all my friends are on Xbox already, can you play between the two consoles? And if having like the Xbox One running a high resolution than the Xbox 360, is that an advantage?
I don't believe that the two platform. It should, in theory, be technically possible if they're using the same Xbox Live servers. But I don't think. I'm trying to think if they've announced the Titanfall is a big one that's coming down the line for Xbox One. Whether that's compatible online with the previous generation, I don't think it is. No.
Well, then, if you're kind of like considering, I guess, for the majority of players, then you're going to have tons more people on Xbox 360, right?
Yeah, Xbox sort of nailed the online service this generation.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people that are moving from Xbox 360 to PlayStation 4, and there's a lot of deals in place at the moment. If you're buying existing games like Assassin's Creed and Call of Duty and Battlefield on this generation, you can effectively trade them in and upgrade for the next gen for like £10. But it's only if you're moving Microsoft to Microsoft. So if you go in Xbox 360 to Xbox One, not Xbox One to PS4.
Yeah.
So personally, my pre-orders in for a PS4. Going to wait and see on the Xbox One for now, but yes, Animal Crossing. That Animal Crossing anecdote is kind of reminiscent of the gaming equivalent of Eternal Sunshine, where like she's being erased from this, in this case, his memory in the game. So I'm sure that was a painful process. Okay, so this is next emails from Ben, who's Ben Summers. He says, me again, got so much to say, but I'll try and keep it short. Really enjoyed the Sensible Soccer podcast. I go back to the Zap 64 days. I've got at least the first 20 issues in a loft somewhere, so you can understand my joy to be reading Gary Penn again. I went straight online this evening and bought Darren's book. On the topic of books about games, I thought you might be interested in the book pictured as attached. You may have already come across it. Not a beautiful book, unlike Darren's, and very US-centric, but an interesting one nonetheless, and it was published in 2002. John Hare was spot on about the close-knit feel of the gaming community back then. Actually, I need to go back to his email and find out which I pasted it into this document. I'll do that in a sec. John Hare was spot on about the close-knit feel of the gaming community back then. I was just a teenage enthusiast, which consoles totally killed. It was a niche, but a vibrant and energized one. I think the rise of open platform, iOS, etc., the independent development scene, new distribution routes such as Steam, and social media as a form of PR are bringing that vibrancy back, and I'm so glad. For too long, games production seemed to leave the hands of small coders and became products that only mega corporations made. I think that had some positive effects in terms of pushing game and graphic quality, engines and hardware, but it ultimately disenfranchised a lot of gamers. We became consumers to be spoon-fed what the industry thought would sell in vast numbers. Originality and adventure died. I'm also looking forward to the public BAFTAs. I hope I may be able to persuade some pals to get interested, but most of my friends nowadays aren't really interested in games, so it might be a struggle, or I'm turning up as Billy No Mates. Thought for one of a future show, a panel of industry luminaries to discuss big issues in question time style, i.e. not chat so much about them, but their views on big issues. you would have to be Paxman and moderate. Anyway, enough I know, keep on rocking. If it weren't the catchphrase for a horrible American megacorp, I'd be tempted to say I'm loving it. That's from Ben. And so the feeling of indie development, you guys are very much in this, like I said, the Shoreditch scene, lots of indie developers here making games that are total labour of loves and just not, a lot of them, I know us too as well, made Whale Trail, and they do they balance it with some corporate stuff. They make, I believe they did the interface for the Huddle, Tesco Huddle, right?
Yeah, they did.
But is it nice to be a part of a community rather than the big mega publishing industry?
It is, and actually, like, companies like us two make us feel like we're their little brother because they're really supportive. They don't just kind of like exist as a separate entity, and no one really does. You've got a lot of companies who are the same size as us, 2-3 people, making games in a small office at the Truman Brewery or in offices of other companies, and that's really fun, especially when you get to kind of like hang out with them, go for beers, and there's a lot of things like we had the Virgin Media Games thing down Leonard Street where there was just like an indie game space where people made crazy stuff like the Doom piano and all this mad kind of stuff. And I
have to say, I know it was sponsored by Virgin Media, but it was really, really cool. That space.
Was cool.
Like, you got to see Proteus, you got to see Oculus Rift, really great indie games that were. You sometimes see them at Eurogamer, but you don't usually get to see shown in a public space.
And you can't usually get into the front of the queue anyway.
Exactly, yeah.
I think one of the cool things is the fact that people are making games not just to make money.
Yeah.
A lot of the time indie games are an expression of whatever idea that someone has, and sometimes that can be bonkers, and some people just don't get it. But sometimes it can be like a really interesting concept, and because it's such a small team and a very tiny development cycle, they can get these things out for not much money.
Yeah, and do them quickly as well.
Exactly, and that's kind of where it kind of spans over more into art than it's just explicitly games, and that's kind of fun.
So there is a community of, like you said, the indie game catch-ups, but you share ideas and show them prototypes and say to other developers, can we have some feedback?
Fills you with energy to see what other people are doing and just how inspired and excited they are to do what they do. And if you do it too, you share that feeling. It really drives you, or drives me, I find. Would you ever want to go into, say, a big team making the next Call of Duty or Grand Theft Auto or something like that?
I would love to.
Yeah.
What do you mean as a
personally? Would you love
as a job?
Yeah, as a job.
No, I couldn't. No. I'd love to go in there and like hang out and see their stuff and what they're working on.
Right.
I couldn't work with them. I could have my 2 cents in what they're doing. Rockstar's a bit of a dream company though. To me, I feel like that would be. In my head, that's like everyone's having the best time ever, but ultimately, I bet it's just a sweaty dungeon where everyone's making.
Yeah. They don't let journalists in, so we can't see. So.
Really?
No. Very, very rare. I think you get occasionally if you're writing for some of the outlets that I write for, but the Guardian, Telegraph, they get access to Dan and Sam Houser in New York, but the actual development, the main base of where it's happening in Edinburgh is very, very secretive. Yeah.
I think it's probably a huge car park with just a little like Mario pipe where everyone goes on the ground and works in a bunker.
Obviously, they've got Rockstar mentality, but can you imagine the amount of work just to, like we're talking about, do the tiny little details?
It's why things like Mythbusters exist.
Yeah.
Right?
It's just so much work. Okay, final question from Perry Urban on the email. He says, a talking point occurred to me this week, especially after listening to the podcast with the Sensible Software chaps. I think your guests this week are developers, and I'd be interested to get their perspective. I'm probably older than most gamers, currently 53 3/4, and as time goes on, I'm finding more and more games that I simply haven't got the gaming muscles to beat. For example, from PlayStation Plus this month, I downloaded some hackety/Metal Gear game or other, as well as Remember Me. I quite enjoyed Remember Me for a couple of hours until I came across a robotic policeman chappie who seemed to take unreasonable pleasure in mocking my ability to twitch respond to his scripted attacks. After being killed half a dozen times, being verbally abused throughout, I'd managed to figure out what to do, then at almost the same moment realised that I would probably never be able to do it. Or if I could, there would soon be some new Uber boss with an even more punishingly programmed combination of impenetrable AI and ego-destroying wit just around the corner. I abandoned the game and retreated to my snug, only with a copy of Board Games Monthly for company. I also had to give up on the Metal Gear game when I found myself astride a gigantic can shell without quite knowing why. I was doing my best to follow various button prompts that were flying past too quickly for me to follow, and ended up simply pressing the mentioned buttons randomly as fast as I could manage. Needless to say, the strategy ended in disaster aboard the aforementioned can shell when I died for no discernible reason. Am I getting too old for games? Will developers soon have to include a geriatric setting for people like me, whose reaction times now wear slippers? Do we need an additional age rating of 50 plus on game boxes? As always, enjoying the podcast, and that's from Perry. What do you guys think? You mentioned that Chippy was aimed at a younger audience. Is that true?
It's accessible. I think that's what we mean when
it's accessible in that as a kid you could play it and you'd have fun. As an adult you could play it and you'd get kind of different things about the game, like the weird headlines in the newspaper, and, kind of like a little bit of a jibe at English kind of British culture, where you can serve someone and you'd think they'd be happy but they walk out miserable. is that kind of feeling which makes it more adult.
Yeah.
But
basing it on reaction time, that's probably. I mean, when you get older, your reaction time does, dwindle. And is that
you don't? The thing is with Chippy, you don't lose. You get to the end of a day and you get a score.
Right.
It's just not like something would get in the way and you wouldn't be able to do it.
It's not like you have to face this boss, and if you don't beat the boss, you can't push.
If you mess up someone's order, it's not game over.
Right.
It's just that you didn't get perfect.
Right.
Yeah. And perfect is something you in any restaurant industry you should be trying to achieve.
Did you speak to actual fish and chip restaurateurs? No.
One guy said that as soon as he saw it, it was like, why is he just putting his hand directly in the deep fat fryer? And I was like, yes, that does happen. He technically doesn't dip it in the oil. The food floats to the top, and he just grabs it off like in a very perfect way.
Well, isn't that his wife though that's doing that? Or is
it depends which touch it is.
Yeah. I've mentioned it in the podcast before, but I asked a similar question about Dead Rising that's coming out on Xbox One, and it was like, why does he have why can he call in airstrikes, and why can he do this? And the best answer was because it's a game, because it's just a game. Like, it doesn't have to make sense.
It's always leaning a bit towards more the fun aspect.
Yeah.
I guess you've got to make games adaptable to the player that's playing them, and that's clever game design. Not everyone is doing that because there is this kind of like rolling idea that gamers are of a certain age bracket, but in reality, if you were kind of originally knocking about playing Spectrum games and having the best time, now you are older, and you still might like games, and that's fine. It's up to the game designer to create something which is adaptable. It's not enough, I don't think, to have easy, medium, hard. I think you've almost got to make it kind of like go, okay, well, they didn't complete this, so let's slightly lower the barrier to get past this, to the point where if you didn't complete it 3 times, you could just get past it.
There's
Nintendo, so that was off.
Do that? Yes, that's quite a challenge though, isn't it? In designing a game that does that. It
kind of relies a little bit more on procedural kind of content, in that you would have to have an AI that could be scaled up and down rather than like set deliberately A level and then a medium level, then an easy level. Because if you play easy, you might be like, this is too easy. Play medium, it might be too hard. That thing in the middle, which you can't have because it's not an option.
Sure.
But you always want a game to be challenging. You don't want to just sit back and like glide through it. It's boring.
No. Sorry, Hugh.
I know that with racing games they do it quite well. The elastic banding, I think that's what it's called.
Where that's the best of that.
Where if you're ahead and you're first, no one likes to be first and lap people. I mean, it's fun like a couple of times just to be like, I'm amazing at this game, but then it's always the same. So if you get in front, people behind you speed up, they catch up, and it's always the excitement is in the struggle. And if they blast off and you're far behind, you can catch them up.
There's certain racing, I can't remember which, it's not Grid 2, but where you basically do a test lap and it sees how good you are, and it's like, okay, play at this level with this, the AI intermediate, but some of the assists on and some of them off. So
that's quite cool.
I hope that, I don't know if that answers the question, Perry, but hopefully there are some games coming along that will pander to you a bit more than maybe move away from Metal Gear and Remember Me with those kind of like very action focused. You've got to be Twitch based gameplay. And just in case, don't put your hand in a deep fat fryer. That is a good policy. Warning. Okay, disclaimer. Thanks very much for your emails, guys. Hit me up on Twitter. It's @GuyCocker, and send your emails to podcast@guycocker.com. Okay, time for the news section. A few stories here that we'll run down with my guests. So, first of all, we've talked about it already. Xbox One versus PlayStation 4. The battle has heated up this week. Eurogamer discovered that Battlefield 4 was running at high resolution on PlayStation 4 over Xbox One. 50%, in fact, in terms of outputted pixels. Then Call of Duty producer this week, Mark Rubin, confirmed on Twitter that Call of Duty Ghosts will be running at 720p on Xbox One and 1080p on PlayStation 4. What this basically means is you're getting slightly more detailed graphics from the PlayStation 4 version of those games, and that's a big deal because they're two of the biggest games of the year. I think in my experience a lot of people won't notice the difference, but there are loads of videos online over at Eurogamer that kind of dissect this the technicalities of this trend out. I think we've covered it already. Anything to add?
Do you guys want to say anything?
To be honest, I don't think most people will mind, but
we'll see.
We'll see
over time
what happens
on this one.
I would mind.
Future.
It's a definite early win for PlayStation 4. I think a lot of eyes.
It kind of confirms the fact that the console is better performance than the Xbox One, and it kind of like with who people wouldn't understand what that means now have an idea that it is resolution, and other stuff could be textures you can't tell.
At the time of launch and around E3, it was all around very technical stuff about GDDR RAM being in PlayStation 4 and slightly faster processor in PlayStation 4. But until it means something that people like, high resolution, okay. I think over time people will get to. No, developers will get to learn the intricacies of these systems. But having talked to people that develop, for PS4 and Xbox One, they have said off the record that it is easier to develop on PlayStation 4. I think the tools are just easier; they're better made. Yeah. So we'll see how this pans out over time. Next one, Golden Joystick Awards now in their 31st year, which is kind of crazy. GTA 5 has won big. Rockstar North's record-breaking title won Game of the Year at the annual awards. It is predicted to sell 25 million copies in the coming year. It's been described as a masterpiece. I know you've been playing it, Max. Have you been playing it as well, Hugo?
Almost exclusively.
Other winners on the night included Call of Duty picking up a Hall of Fame award. Of course, that series now 10 years old. Naughty Dog's The Last of Us winning Best Newcomer and Best Storytelling, which I think is very well deserved. And Bioshock creator Ken Levine taking home the inaugural Lifetime Achievement Award. He said of the industry, the great thing about the still maturing nature of video games is you get inspired by the work of novices and veterans alike. Golden Joysticks, GTA 5.
I think they totally deserve it. I think everyone who won something there deserved it. Gaming it's gotten a lot more backing. It's more popular now.
Yeah, it used to be so niche when we were kids. Well, not really super niche, but you couldn't exactly play games with everyone. The fact that Golden Joysticks is in the 31st year and so many people, every guy you go to the pub with, you can have a GTA 5 conversation with. It's unreal.
It really is.
I love that.
Yeah, I did a talk about it. Just in terms of raw numbers, it's really, you get big game launches, but Grand Theft Auto, in terms of number of people that actually go out and buy that game at launch, it was similar to a number of people that went out and saw Skyfall in the UK, and that's the most popular film that's made the most money at the box office of any film ever. And so the numbers of people, it's really hit critical mass with just its cultural importance. What about best handheld game going to Assassin's Creed 3 Liberation? Best indie game going to Mark of the Ninja? I can agree with that. I do like Mark of the Ninja.
I think the Assassin's Creed definitely backhander.
Yeah. Seems weird. It doesn't seem like that's the best handheld game. There's loads of stuff on 3DS, but loads of stuff on mobile as well this year. That's better than that.
It's so hard, lumping console games in with mobile games, because obviously to directly compete them is really difficult. Yeah,
because Liberation is still probably a huge undertaking of a lot of people.
Yeah, exactly.
It's and the price point as well.
Yeah,
DS games or 3DS games compared to a mobile game. Mobile games you can pick up for free or 69p. Whereas
or £2 for Chippy.
£2 for Chippy, which is very reasonable. What was I saying?
You're saying the price point difference versus the.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's not really fair. You're not comparing apples to apples.
It's a massive factor. Sure. The magnitude, the difference. So you can pay £30 or something. Of course, they can put more time into it. They can get larger teams, and they can make a better game. I'd say a more wide, pleasing game.
Yeah.
But it also affects the middle kind of ground developers who make not AAA titles on consoles. Their budgets shrank.
Right.
while they're still trying to push the envelope of what you can do in that price range. Because ultimately, you need a middle ground of games. Not everything can just be AAA. And not everything can just be
indie, or mobile.
What's the middle bit?
Right.
It doesn't. There isn't really one at the moment.
Very good point. All right, we need to petition for for best. Oh, actually, sorry. No, there is a. I just missed this out. I'm sorry, Max. There's a best mobile tablet game of the year, but that's still XCOM: Enemy Unknown. Great game, but it's. It sells for £12 on I don't know what it is now. When it launched, it was £12 on tablet.
I think I saw it was on sale for £9.99.
On sale for £10. And that's awesome. It's a really cool game.
It's a great game, yeah.
But yeah, maybe they should be by price point, you know?
Yeah.
And it can't just be like, oh, it's that price point because we went on sale for the week that we did the awards. It's like, what is your full RRP?
Right, okay. Those are the golden joysticks anyway. I'm going to run through some news stories in brief. Guys, jump in if any of them are of interest. Resident Evil 5 has now overtaken Street Fighter 2 to become Capcom's best ever selling game. This is phenomenal. Street Fighter 2 is incredibly iconic. Resident Evil 4 is looked at as one of the weaker entries in that series, and yeah, it's the biggest seller. So I think even though 5 is looked down on, we're definitely going to get more Resident Evil games, which is a bit of a shame. PS4 won't support.
I don't know.
You don't know?
Well, because I remember like Resident Evil 2, that was so good.
It was so good.
1 was
4,
brilliant.
yeah.
4 was.
Let's just merge Street Fighter and Resident Evil and have some horrible hybrid.
Capcom have got a lot of titles as well.
They've got a lot of IP, yeah.
Like Mega Man.
Mega Man, yeah.
There's so many Mega Man games. I'm a massive Mega Man fan.
Okay.
Preface now, but so many games that were going to come out and have just been scrapped. There was one by the people who made Metroid Prime, a first-person shooter Mega Man, in a similar vein to Metroid Prime, and it looked really good. I watched a video of like a gameplay, early development, and it looked really good, but
it never made it.
A lot of just canned Mega Man games.
Capcom's having a tough time of it at the moment. It's there are lots of layoffs in both in the US and the UK. They're sort of refocusing for next year. I think they've got one game coming. They've got Dead Rising coming out for Xbox One when that launches. But apart from that, yes, they're definitely one of those publishers that's having a tough time of it at the moment. PlayStation 4 won't support media servers or MP3s. If you're buying a PlayStation 4 as an MP3 player, first of all, what are you doing? But B, it won't play MP3s. I imagine that'll be fixed later on. It's probably not a priority at launch, but
no, but it's still a thing, isn't it?
It is a thing.
People are saying they're talking about it, and it is kind of like, oh, well, I could do it on my PS3, so why can't I do it on my PS4?
It's a very odd one. I know.
But it's licensing, isn't it?
It'll be licensing, yeah. I know a lot of people do actually play. Joking aside, a lot of people do play their own MP3s when they're, in a racing game or another game that's supports custom soundtracks. So it is a feature that people do actually use.
Just talk about Chromecast or Google, AirPlay or something. Just let us do that.
I know it's kind of, they won't play MP3s. And media servers, that's a good feature of the PS3. It'll play media from media servers if you've got like a NAS in your house. But yes, won't support it at launch. Ouya 2 or Ouya 2.0 launching next year with an updated controller. Guys, do you have any thoughts on the Ouya?
Yeah, I think it's a cool little box. That we kickstarted it ourselves.
Did you?
Yeah, so we
got a launch console.
The thing is, for like us as a separate entity from anything and just making games for iOS, the jump for us to Android is always big. Because we have to kind of take a massive risk on something we don't know much about in terms of who buys what's the price point, all this kind of stuff, and the fact that our code base is iOS native.
Sure.
And when we do something like Meteor, we're going to have the ability to go cross-platform, and we're really excited to do something on Ouya and Android and Windows Phone, get it all on everything. Sure. Because you can learn a lot about kind of different gamers, different places that you do games. The thing about Ouya is they're really strict about their free gaming stuff, aren't they? Yes, it has to have an element of free to play, or it's got to have a demo or something. I think the demo route is cool. I like that. I love demo discs when I have my PlayStation. Get the old magazines, never read it. Get the official PlayStation UK magazine, get the disc and just freaking play Destruction Derby 2, same track over and over. And eventually you get it for Christmas and you've got something to do while you get it. Yeah. That was fun. I think if you can replicate that, it kind of brings that nostalgia back, but I'm not sure. They've kind of blown their load a little bit on the first Ouya console, and everyone's got this. And what do you do now? Do we go out and get the other one? Right. I don't think of I'm not against Ouya at all, but
Sure.
I think I haven't actually played it for very long. You know, the controller was very lightweight, and that instantly put me off.
The controller was horrible. Yeah, very bad.
Well, if it's coming out with a better controller, that'd be.
At least they're rectifying that. It'd be interesting to see whether it's the same price. I mean, I've reviewed Ouya like over and over again for various outlets for the last 6 months, and it's gotten better over time. Initially, it was very underwhelming. The store was horrible. The controller wasn't very good on the Kickstarter models. Then they released the retail console, and the store got a lot better, and the controller got slightly better. And
What
of course,
did they do to the controller to make it better?
they just made the buttons less. So on the first one,
Spongy, aren't
they're
they?
very spongy, yeah, and they would get stuck underneath the faceplate sometimes. And so like they sorted that out and got that better. But now it's actually the modding community that's come up around it and getting stuff like XBMC on there, and so that's a media center and various other like unsupported apps and just emulators and stuff like that on there. I know it's sort of a legally dodgy area, but if you're into that sort of hacking mentality, Ouya totally supports it. And when you get GameStick, which is another device that's, I don't think it's actually out yet, but I've just reviewed it. Great portable little machine, but because it's so closed, it feels like it's a lesser, it's a poor man's Ouya basically.
Well,
So
Ouya did say from the beginning that they support everything. It's
You
like
can
an open
root
platform.
it, whatever-
you can do
whatever
whatever
you
you
want.
want, and that's cool. I like that.
and make games for it as well.
I met Julie.
Julie Urban. Yeah.
At, where was it? Eurogamer.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, she's really cool, and
Is
I
she?
love the way she's kind of like, she completely believes in it, and I think she's got the ability to kind of like cut through everything and make something really good.
I think so. You go to the website now, I think they're nearly up to 500 games. I was interested to hear from you there, Max, about as a developer, getting the demo and all, because as a consumer, that's the best part of Ouya again. When you get it, you've got access to all these free games. Granted, a lot of them aren't very good, but so many free games on there. That first weekend, I just played with it and didn't spend a penny. As a consumer, that's quite fun. It's quite good.
But do you remember like Congregate is a really cool gaming model for developers that we used to take advantage of. We always knew that we were making like the higher end kind of games in Flash. That was what we loved to make Flash games when that was the thing.
Yeah.
So
this was what, early 2000s?
This is from 2007 we started Johnny Two Shoes. Up into 2010 we made Flash games.
Okay.
And we had a website with a community of about 1 million unique players a month,
Right.
which is massive for us, like as a two-man team.
Yeah.
And so we'd put out games to our own website and then do different versions for like Congregate with different level in.
Yeah.
But the brilliant thing is about that is they would actually, every week they'd have a competition where the first game every week would get like $1,000, the next one would get like 500, the next one would get 250, and then so the top 3 games every week, most plays or most rated I think it was, would
Right.
get like a lump sum of cash,
Right.
and then you get a share of your advertising revenue, 50%, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So it means that even though that wasn't your only platform you're going out on, you were still making money from it.
Sure.
And when you're looking at like a free game, you have to have a way to make money. I think it would be really nice if Ouya would let like game developers make tiny little demos for the store without the full price game at the back end,
Right.
and give them money for it.
And
Just
serve
like
ads
say,
on it.
okay, like here's 5-10 grand, make a demo, right? Has to be on the store by this date,
Yeah.
and then just like get these demos going and let people vote on what they want to get made.
Okay, that's cool. Yeah, like Greenlight, I guess. Steam Greenlight.
Yeah, like Greenlight, but put some funding behind it. Like, it doesn't have to be much money.
Sure.
But just so there's an incentive for
That's a
people
really
to do
cool
something.
idea. Okay, so that's Ouya 2 coming next year. Steam now has 65 million registered users. I think that's it's either 20 million or 15 million ahead of Xbox Live, which is obviously doing really, really well. Wii U continuing to flounder. That's sold just 460,000 units in the last 6 months. Is it all over for Wii U, guys? Any interest in that?
I don't dislike it at all, but I don't know what it is. I think it's got that kind of like the feeling. It feels, and I actually agree with one of the emails that Guy sent in before. It feels like even though the console itself isn't like a next gen console in terms of power, the idea of using a handheld screen in front of your TV, which you can then take games when someone wants to use the TV, it feels very forward thinking.
Yeah.
But it feels like something Apple should have done.
Right.
And that's why it's weird. You've got like an iPad essentially with a joystick on the side of it, and there's other cool stuff to it for sure. But some of the games that people have made are actually really clever, and I always kind of like to look at things like that and kind of be inspired to make something on different platforms.
Sure.
It's very interesting.
I think that features, if you've got a Vita, you've got to have a Vita as well. That feature is coming to PlayStation 4 as well.
And I think that's going
to
to absolutely tread on Wii U. The only thing they can do is be cheaper now.
Sure. That's a good point. Okay, so that's 460,000 units. I'm with you, Matt. So I do like the console, but it's and there are good games coming down the pipe, I think. Borderlands 2 on pace to break 2K sales records. So this has been a real big success for publisher 2K. Shipped over 7.5 million copies at retail and is on track to become 2K Games' highest selling title ever. So that's even above. I'm trying to think what else have they.
Even before NBA 2K14.
Even NBA 2K14 and WWE that's being advertised on MCV as I read this. It's fantastic. Have you guys played Borderlands?
I've got both first and the second one.
Really, really good. Really funny.
Really just such fun, and they're so funny as well. The humour in the games is definitely an added bonus. Like the games are fun to play, just to run around and shoot skags
and they look really, really nice as well.
The humour is you'll laugh out loud.
When it first came out, we all bought copies, didn't we? Me, you and Josh, and we just played it together online. The only thing I didn't like about it is when you went to a different area, you'd have to be with everyone, and it would have to load for ages. It felt like. I think in Borderlands 2 they fixed all that stuff, but that
they did,
that
too.
In
2 it was much better.
I'm a bit of an idiot about stuff like that.
No, it's fine. As a game maker, those technical issues will probably, I don't know, frustrate you, I guess.
Yeah, massively.
Grand Theft Auto 5 nears 29 million units shipped, so this isn't sold but shipped to retailers. Obviously, that's quite a few units. And then finally, Charlie Brooker is hosting a new video game show. So this is possibly only of interest to those of you listening in the UK. But
I'm very excited about that. I loved Games Wipe,
News
Wipe, Screen Wipe. I watched all of them, but Games Wipe especially.
Charlie Brooker is a legend, isn't he?
So I'm just looking at him, sort of looking disapprovingly from the pages of MCV. So it's been a while since Games Wipe actually. Back in 2009, so 4 years ago.
I'm surprised it's taken so long for someone to snap him up for a game show.
Just give him some money to make a game show. Presumably quite cheap to make. So you'll be watching it, you guys. Fans. Okay, thanks very much for helping me run through those stories. You can find out more details and links to the stories, the original stories. Just head over to guycocker.com. Okay, time to talk to my guests about what they've been playing, what they're up to at the moment, what's on their radar, anything else that might be of interest. Max, what are you playing at the moment? I know you just finished Chippy, but...
Yeah, so I've been playing Chippy a lot.
Yeah.
Testing it out, doing some Game Centre stuff since it launched. It's
quite
fun.
So is Game Centre compatible? I didn't ask that.
Yeah, well, when you finish the game, you've got the reputation of either your friends who have got the game or worldwide players next to you, so you can kind of see where you stand amongst your friends. That's the kind of little kind of competitive elements to it.
Nice.
Yeah, and otherwise, seriously, I'm just so trying to find any moment where I can play GTA 5. I know I keep talking about it, but my girlfriend's basically started a master's, so she's at university a couple of nights a week. So I've got my time. I've stopped drinking as much.
Really, to get back to play.
Get back to playing.
That's dedication.
Which is
that's healthy.
I know GTA 5 is healthy for you. Let me just say that.
That's a marketing. It's a
balanced diet.
Exactly. Yeah, helps you reduce the alcohol intake at least.
Yeah.
Mind you, do you end up sort of eating unhealthy food while you're playing?
I've got food all over my controller when I was trying to play GTA and eat at the same time.
That's gross.
I know it's gross, yeah. I feel like I've become a shell of my former self.
Yeah. So GTA 5, obviously you guys are fans of it. It is an incredible game.
Yeah, it is awesome.
I'm really excited to... I've been waiting until Chippy's been released and to see if it does well, so I can buy the new Pokemon games.
Oh yeah,
massive,
big Pokemon fan.
Yeah, big Pokemon fan. Really, just want to get. I'm gonna get a 3DS. I was looking at the.
You haven't even got a 3DS.
I haven't even got a 3DS. I'm gonna get one so I can play Pokemon.
Hugo's very frugal with money. He's very sensible.
Well, you need to treat yourself if game
launch doesn't happen all the time.
Exactly. So get on that, and then Pokemon X or Y. It's I stopped playing it, but Y definitely.
Someone I know has
X, so you can swap.
They're like, get Y.
So and then you're going to get the 3DS or the 2DS?
3DS.
3DS. I'd go for the XL model, definitely.
The good thing is about the 2DS, if you also need a doorstop.
It's perfect.
It's multi-purpose.
Hinges are really expensive, that's why it's cheap.
If you're a game developer, that would look cool to have it as a doorstop.
Yeah, it would be well cool. I think they look awesome.
So 3DS and a copy of that game. Anything else that you guys have seen? Obviously, it's a busy release period at the moment.
Well, for the past few years, I've just been always dipping in and out of playing Minecraft.
Yeah.
They just updated to 1.7. Loads of new worlds.
Is that the PC version? I have to put my hand up and say I haven't played Minecraft in a while.
That's alright, don't worry.
You guys well into it?
I absolutely adore it.
Yeah.
Something about it just grabs me. I mean, the first time I played it, I downloaded it and I was like, I don't know what to do. So I looked up went on a wiki and it's like, I can punch trees down and use that to make things. And then it was about 10 hours later and I hadn't eaten, moved, done anything. I was so thirsty, just sitting in the dark because it turned to night. But it still grips me.
Have you? So you're more of a. Do you play the creation more? Do you have like a shared
I like
server?
I've got a server, but I like playing survival.
Yeah.
I've played modded games. I've gone there's one, Feed the Beast, which is a stupid name, but it's all very technical. You can build all these like automation. That's very rewarding, but it's there's about probably like 10 different ways to do one thing, and I find myself frozen with indecision.
Just a problem, just don't know what to do.
There's too much to do.
Hugo used to be a massive fan of Gary's mod, and I did
Oh,
as
yeah.
well. That was so much fun, just that crazy mod for Half-Life that you could go in and just like construct really weird castles with little hinges for doors. And
It's still going. I saw it promoted on Steam Store the other day.
Yeah?
It's very good. It was one of the things that really got me into developing games, just so I could make a gun that shoots oranges. That's hilarious. So people would join on the server I had, and I'd just be running around shooting oranges at them, or running all these commands I had one which would spawn. There was a modern Half-Life games of like a weird sort of half man. It would spawn. I could shoot it at someone, and it would spawn that in front of them and play a scream sound effect. And people would just get very, very scared by that and just run around. You could just see them spin around like with their mouse pointing their gun in different directions, and you just keep doing it and shoot an orange at them, and then they'd disconnect.
It's on that note though. It's a good. I heard it recently. It's a good way of getting into games development, isn't it? Doing modding.
It's very, very easy.
And playing Minecraft. I'm sure you could, if you're a kid out there, you can use that as an excuse to play Minecraft and get into games development.
We did it through me and Josh used to make levels for Unreal Tournament. He used to do Unreal modding, so
sorry, Josh is your
other brother.
Yeah.
So that's kind of fun.
So making mods for Unreal or whatever it is, Half-Life.
Counter-Strike levels or whatever.
Okay, anything else that's you guys are playing or interested in? What about the big releases? Battlefield, Call of Duty, Assassin's Creed, Batman. These are all out at the moment.
I always find I buy these games and then I never finish them.
They just sit there.
I've got a lot of games that I've half completed. I'm just trying to stick to GTA at the moment. I've got halfway through it now. So hopefully I can finish the rest of it. But
before Christmas?
Before the end of the week. It's Friday, so I've got a long weekend.
You could do it in a long weekend. Yeah, I played it pretty much to the end in like 4 days.
Jeez,
so,
man.
Yeah, that was a hard 4 days. It was a good, enjoyable 4 days, but like whenever you fail, because I was doing it for a review, you sort of, whenever you're failing a mission, you're like, this is wasted time. I need to steal this car properly. So I'll tell you a bit, because I've been playing all these. I couldn't talk about them on last week's show. Assassin's Creed 4 came out on Tuesday, and I reviewed that for Stuff magazine. It's much more. You might like it, actually, both of you guys, because it's much more open world than previous games. It's a lot like GTA 5, but it's more pirate themed. It's more open seas.
I've seen I saw it at Gamescom. I didn't play it because it was a massive.
Did you go to Gamescom?
Yeah.
I didn't realise. Okay.
I went there just for like a bit of an ad hoc kind of thing to do. But like the sea and it looks incredible.
It does, yeah.
And I love that. Anyone that can do sea properly, it just blows my mind. That's why I like Far Cry when it first came out. I was like, right, that's it. I love that game just purely for the fact that it got really nice sea.
It's both games from Ubisoft Montreal, so obviously they've nailed water physics. But you're right, the sea looks amazing. But I played it on Xbox 360. It looks even better on next gen. Like the water is incredible. Yeah.
That might be the reason to get the next gen, just
for the water. The way that your ship bobs is beautiful. Yeah, it's very good.
running up and down and the rigging and all that stuff just is awesome. Isn't it?
It is cool. It's cool. I think that the actual assassinating in Assassin's Creed 4 is pretty similar to previous games in the series. Like the combat, if you've played the other game that I'm going to talk about, Batman Arkham Origins, the combat just is nowhere near as good. And I think I keep making mistakes. Like that free running mechanic was really good to begin with, but it's either too easy and you're just holding two buttons to just run up everything, or it means that you get it wrong, you jump when you don't want to jump. And so I had some frustrations, but it's a game that's definitely worth picking up, and they have pushed it in an interesting new direction. I didn't expect Assassin's Creed to turn into like a pirate game, but it's the best pirate game I played. Batman Arkham Origins, a lot of reviewers were quite down on this, and just on Metacritic, it's on Xbox 360. It's sitting on a 75 Metacritic average, and the main complaint levelled at it is that it's too similar to. In fact, Destructoid had given it a 35 and said it's contemptuously pissed all over what Rocksteady accomplished with the previous Arkham games and shat out a soulless wreckage of a game. So they were quite down on it. Some good. So it's sometimes nice to kick a game, but that's pretty harsh.
Developers will cry over that.
Developers will cry over that. That's pretty harsh. I really like it. I think it's one of those things where it's a cliche, but if you're a fan of the series, it has everything you want. I'm playing it on PC. It looks absolutely stunning, but after you come from Assassin's Creed, the combat is so beautifully done in Arkham. Have you played those games?
Yeah, the original one. I was obsessed with.
Brilliant. Asylum and City.
City is very much like City in the setup. You are exploring the city again, but yeah, really enjoyed that. Game Stick I've been playing around with. It's got potential. I think we mentioned it earlier. Ouya's the one to go for if you're looking for an Android console. Also been playing with the Arcos Gamepad 2, which I should have brought down for you guys. Actually, I know you're not Android developers, but there's so many Android consoles that are coming out. This one looks like an oversized Vita. It's a reasonably spec'd tablet with game controls on either side. Have you seen these sort of things?
Yeah, I had a look at it online. It looks pretty nuts.
It's pretty nuts. Like £179, so around, a little bit more expensive than a Vita. I think it's really interesting. When I reviewed the original Arcos Gamepad, it was a horrible screen. It was really slow and bad. But I said in, I think, the review for Wired that if I was a teenager, basically these days, I'd probably rather have an Android console that I can then download loads of games on, either free or cheaply, than a Vita and one game. You know, it's
could you technically make a phone call on it?
You can't. No, you can make a Skype call on it, but not a phone call. There's no SIM card slot. No,
that would blow my mind if
you're just holding this
like
huge tablet,
holding a skateboard to your face.
So yeah, I'm reviewing this for stuff at the moment. I'm not quite ready for a final verdict, but it's a lot better than the original Arcos Gamepad.
It's got an OLED screen, right?
It's got. Is it OLED? I'm not sure if it's OLED. I can find out, but it's not quite up there with, because I think it's 1280 by 800 screen, so it's not quite up there with the latest Retina displays.
Yeah.
And even the Nexus 7, but it's pretty nice what it does. I've only been playing with it for a day, but I just don't know what the market is for that. You know.
The thing is, when you've got something like that, I mean, if there's a universal joypad thing on like Android, then it can kind of plug into that and use that, which is what GameKit has now, a universal game controller thing.
Yeah.
So like technically people could license that, or I'm not sure how it will work exactly, but it seems like they'll be bringing out some controllers.
There are a few actually out now. Yeah, Moga, in my mind, makes the best one, at least the one I've played with. There's Green Throttle as well. They're coming to iOS as well next year.
Yeah.
Moga just leaked a prototype. The iOS device sits in there, and then it's got controllers either side of it, because awesome. Apple unlocked their whatever it was it Bluetooth, third-party Bluetooth compatibility?
Yeah.
With the latest iOS. So yeah, it's coming down the line. And I'm going to play. I'm not into WWE games at all, but I'm on the BBC tomorrow talking about WWE 2K14. So I'm going to go home and play that. Any WWE fans?
Do you know what? I have no problem with any kind of game that relies heavily on physics. I don't know if this does though.
It does. Well, it kind of does.
Well,
yeah.
You know what I used to really love about it when I was a kid is the you could get out of the ring, pick up a chair, and smash them around the face, and they would bleed.
Oh,
I know it's really savage, but you might see a running theme with the way I like to play games. I'm obsessed with really weird physics like sea physics and like cloth physics.
Yeah.
And then I like just to smash someone around the head with a chair.
Oh, next gen's got great cloth physics. NBA 2K14, amazing cloth physics.
That's going to be brilliant. Actually love basketball games as well.
Yeah, me too. NBA is brilliant, actually, just as an aside. And then just to finish up the show, reviews roundup. Assassin's Creed 4 on Xbox 360 sitting on an 86 Metacritic. WWE, which we just spoke about, 75. Battlefield 4's just come out, 81 Metacritic. Sonic Lost World on Wii U and 3DS is out this week. Didn't fare as well. That's a 60 Metacritic on 3DS and 62 on Wii U. And then finally, Football Manager 2014, also developed right here in around Old Street. That one got an 85. So if that's your thing, it's worth checking out. That's it for this week's episode. Just want to say thanks to my guests, guys. Thanks very much for joining me.
Yeah, no worries, man. Thanks for having us.
Where can we find you on Twitter? Stalk you.
It's at Glitches, but before the RS, there's an underscore. So a bit of a weird one.
So GLITCH underscore E underscore RS.
You can find, if you go to chippyapp.com, where in the footer there's the link to our site which has all our information.
Good stuff. And do you guys tweet personally?
Yes.
Yeah, we don't have anyone hired.
There's no social media manager.
No, there's no social media. You can find me at Meridimus, MERIDIMUS. It's mainly kind of like illustration stuff that I'm doing on my blog.
Okay.
And game design quips.
Okay, fair enough. So that just get that out there. Just don't subscribe unless you like design and video games.
My Twitter is at Hugo S Slade. I'm really not that interesting. I don't even do that.
Great way to
Main
say
stuff's
it.
on glitches, where all the cool stuff's happening.
That's all the best stuff.
Focus on there.
Alright, thanks very much, guys. If you've got any feedback from the show, please send it to podcast@guycocker.com. Let me know in your email if you want me to read it out on the show, or if not, just let me know that as well. Next week, I'll be back again with another episode of the show. I was due to have the Mode 7 guys on, but unfortunately for personal reasons they've had to cancel, so I've got to find some other guests. But I'll let you know who they are on Twitter. Remember, you can subscribe to the show in iTunes to have new episodes delivered as soon as they're available. As I say, leave a piece of feedback, a review, a rating if you're feeling generous, preferably if it's positive as well. And I'll see you next week.